Welcome, Internet. This is the July 21, 2015 IPython Jupyter dev meeting. And we'll get going with our note-taking. I guess since I'm speaking, I'll just go first with a quick report. Mostly communications, a little bit of the usual background work that always keeps me busy. But I guess that I did actually put some productive time into the project with Jupyter Day last Friday. We all worked on that, but we basically had a all-day event at LBL, Jupyter Day, which was kind of a dry run of, I guess, what will become Jupyter cons in the future. It was a sequence of short technical talks on the various aspects of the project. It was very useful. We gave a series of presentations. We have a repository. We'll put the link up on the hackpad to the repo. I think, Min, I don't know if your slides are up.
I haven't put them in there. I'll do that.
So let's finish uploading the various slides. I think mine are already up. Thomas, you mostly presented from the docs, right? You didn't have like static slides. You were presenting from the existing documentation.
I have there's a script checked into the repo which just opens the pages that I was using.
Okay, cool. And I need to check in the agenda because that'll serve. I'll put the agenda into the README. That'll serve kind of as a guide for what we did through the day. But it was very useful. We presented the various aspects of the project as a sequence of short talks, and then people from LBL presented short lightning talks on what they are doing with the project, which was very useful feedback. Their lightning talks are checked into the repo so people can see what they presented. And then we had a short section of discussion, which most of the questions centered around Jupyter Hub and customized kernel deployments. And so we ended up having about a 30-minute demo of basically Jess working on how she did her complicated Jupyter Hub deployment. It was a very productive day. And I think I'll leave it at that to keep us moving. And anything else you guys want to say about that day so that we wrap up that topic, and since you guys all worked on that day as well?
No, I think that covers it. We can cover the contents in other less time pressure environments.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Do you want to start with Nick that already wrote what he was working on?
Sure.
I will take less time this time. So the IPyMD metadata stuff is in, so that's great. And it still doesn't do a lot of what it needs to do, but it will fully round trip all the metadata and try to strip out metadata that people don't probably want to version or have other people working on in GitHub, and et cetera, et cetera. The next thing we're going to be adding are some little, I killed my other stuff, are some little shortcuts that let you have kind of like Scott Chacone's thing where you could say like this next chunk of Markdown is a slide, but then work with the rest of the reveal things for it's a slide or it's a fragment or whatever. And been talking with Damien on Rise packaging. So right now it's kind of have to clone the repo or use the bookmarklet or something like that. And so we're working on figuring the story there. I think somebody else is probably going to talk a little bit about this, but we are going to be needing some additional help that will help Conda be probably the optimal way to install it, because it'll be able to activate the MD extension after it's been installed. I've been working with Knut on Mermaid, which I love using in the notebook to make sure that the build going forward is all require.js functional. It's if you haven't used Mermaid before, it lets you draw nice sequence diagrams, Gantt charts, flow charts, a couple other things with sort of a little markdown-like language. It's a really nice way to get structured diagrams in and manageable into a notebook. And then I finished up my first round of work on IPyLiveCoder, which is just a little thing that lets you write just the update method from a widget. And automatically rerun that every time you change the code or you change the traits that drive it. So it's a really fun little way to introduce somebody to hacking on real widgets. I want to get to where that generates a whole package from just the widget definition, and I think that's pretty possible. So I guess that's about that there. And going to be talking a little bit more about my little tool that I've been working on for the narrative-driven storytelling and modeling stuff, and still working on getting that open sourced and getting our IP out of there and all those types of things. That was all.
Wow. Cool.
Yeah.
And you're giving, you mean a talk at work over at your workplace?
Yes. So kind of around widgets that have widgets in their tradelets and what that means to you, and static putting your stuff into metadata and other tricky advanced widget concepts, I guess.
Great. Do you have kind of good uptake from your colleagues and people, others beginning to write their own code with this, or is it mostly people asking you to do the writing?
We have, so I got some guys really excited about the last thing that I did with the oscilloscopes and all that stuff. So we're looking at wrapping an existing REST framework into widgets so that you're using this REST framework that we've exposed, but typing on stuff there. So that's gotten some people really excited about, especially the stuff in new IPy widgets where you can add the tradelets and stuff at runtime. So that's pretty cool.
Cool.
But then
Thank you.
Lots of slides. People are very into slides.
Thank you.
So I can go next. I just added my stuff to the hack tab. So as of yesterday, I am part of the long-term funding. So woohoo!
Yay!
Congratulations, John. Fantastic news.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you guys for working on it.
What a long road.
Thank you, Brian, for all the effort.
Yeah.
Well,
thank you for your patience and sticking kind of on the high wire act for so long.
Yeah. Lots of scanning and signing documents yesterday. It was like my whole day was. What else? So I didn't get a talk in last week's meeting. So of course a bunch of things happened at SciPy. Normal hacking on things, but in specific, I want to talk about a project that Kyle and I started working on called TransferMime. And I think, Min may have mentioned it in the last meeting. I forget. I watched the recording and somebody mentioned it.
I mentioned it a little bit, but it would be better for you to talk about it.
Yeah. So Kyle, of course, he has his sidecar application, which is just something that renders only outputs of an existing IPython session. And right now in his sidecar application, he's kind of re-implemented the output area from scratch. So that's a little frustrating having that in two places. So we decided that it would be a good idea to start trying to take the output area out and make it something that's reusable. So first we started with web components. And we realized as we were working on it that there's really a more generic piece to this problem than just the output area. I mean, it's really the thing that it does is take these MIME bundles and renders an HTML element. And so out of our output area, we created TransferMime, which is a project that just takes MIME types or MIME type bundles and creates HTML elements. So I've been working on that with him. We're trying to get some demos together to show everybody. I think he's actually using it inside Sidecar now successfully.
Yeah, he is.
And I think Will, who's on the chat today, I think Will was going to investigate using it too.
That's right.
Yeah. And so two more things. I'm going to PyData, so I'm working on a talk. I'm going to talk about IPython and Jupyter, past, present, and future, and kind of the greater Jupyter org. So it's very similar to a talk that Fernando gave recently. In fact, Min sent me the slides to it, so I'll be plucking information from that. And then lastly, I wanted to mention there's a problem with the widgets right now. I've been kind of looking at it as I'm working on this talk. I think the static assets aren't getting loaded or aren't available at runtime. So I'm looking at a couple different solutions to that. That's it for me.
Is that what's happening with Travis?
Yeah, that's what I think is happening.
Okay.
It looks like that's what's happening.
Thank you, John.
Thanks.
Chris, your name seems to be next on the list, so why don't you hop in?
Yeah, I was going to suggest that. So sorry. Steve and Dave are out for various reasons this week, but they've been basically continuing the work that they did from last week. Steve's still working with Matthias and Jason Grout doing the port of the front end notebook to TypeScript, and working on starting to tease out what the core interfaces of that should be and how the whole new front end should be built up. Dave is still working on the IPython Qt-like console for the browser. We should probably think of a better name for that to shorten that bit of work up, so we can talk about it more quickly. What's that?
Yeah, we've been I think we've been referring to that idea as the web console.
Web console, that works for me. Okay, so be it. On my end, I had a conversation late Friday night with Brian and his students about Phosphor in general and what we can do to kind of have something that provides kind of like a standard hierarchy that people can use to build custom DOM things that have lifecycle events like attach, detach, show, hide events, and the kinds of things that propagate correctly throughout the entire hierarchy, which you don't get with Backbone. So in addition to the work that I'm doing right now on refactoring Phosphor to use ES6 modules, which will just compile down to common or AMD until we have actually ES6 browser support. But so in addition to that work, I'm taking the opportunity now to try to basically not necessarily simplify, but refactor the core Phosphor widget class to kind of be that base class, which is completely independent of Phosphor's absolute layout system. So you could use these kinds of widgets as a base hierarchy to do things, basically make reusable components, whether they're used in CSS layout or in other regular standard Phosphor absolute layouts. So that's kind of the idea that I'm playing with right now. It's a very tricky problem to get that elegantly working together. But so far it's going good. Right now I'm optimistic that it can be done. But I'm kind of in the middle of it, so that's about where we're at. But that kind of I don't know how well that ties into the stuff that John and Kyle are doing right now. It sounds like it may be tangentially related, but I think it will certainly help the guys at Cal Poly in the immediate term, and maybe also the core widget framework in the longer term.
Cool.
Chris, if I may ask you, I was actually trying to take notes, but between the fact that you talk really fast and the fact that Hackpad has horrific lag, I just wasn't able to. So maybe when the call wraps up, if I could ask you just to take 2 minutes to summarize your own notes, just so that the Hackpad has some notes, or maybe right now while somebody else is speaking, if you could just type up a quick summary of what you just said, so that we have
absolutely.
Basically
a couple of sorry for talking fast. Was everybody able to understand me?
No, that's okay. No, you were fine. Just a little fast for typing while you were speaking. That's all. No, it was perfectly fine. I also speak fast, and that's okay. But it was just a bit, especially with the freaking lag that Hackpad has.
Yeah, it's also so. There's a reason we've got this 2015 part 1. It's that there's a kind of a limit to how big Hackpad documents can be.
Yeah.
It's time to start
it's probably time to start a new one because it's getting
and it's not only that, it's we're editing at the top of a thing that has to reflow every time you press a key. So I'll fill in my stuff. Don't worry about that.
It's probably easier to type somewhere else and paste. Jason, you seem to be typing. Go for it.
Sure. Seems like that's the thing to do, is just put your notes up there. So I've been working a lot on it.
It's the easiest thing.
On the traitlets, particular changes we wanted to push into traitlets. Now that it seems like traitlets is about to be adopted a lot more widely. So
seems like it, yeah.
we had a good discussion, and thanks to everyone that participated in that. We had some direction going forward, so I've been working on implementing those changes. Also, Chris Colbert and I were asked to give a Strata Hadoop talk in September here in New York. So an hour and a half on IPython notebook, the Jupyter notebook, something of maybe a little tutorial as well as some more advanced stuff. So we might be taking some of the stuff you guys have done or doing our own stuff as well.
By the way, can I ask you guys, so Brian's going to be there, the two of you are going to be there. Who else from the team is going to be at Strata New York? I am not.
I'll be.
No.
I'm speaking as well. I'll be speaking with Andrew Odawan.
Okay, Ben. I spoke with Ben Larica yesterday. I saw him in the city, and he was asking me about who's going to be there to make sure that we have enough presence at the open source table. Since they're going to have open source booths this for the first time at Strata, they're going to have kind of a community projects area. So it'll be good for us to be well represented in the open source booths area. So I'm glad to hear that enough of us are going to be there. Good. Anyone else from Cal Poly? John, are you going to go?
What? John already went, right?
He's asking if you're going to Strata, New York.
Are you going to Strata, New York?
Oh, Strata. Oh,
I was asking about October.
I don't know, actually. I haven't talked to Brian about it. So, right, as of now, no.
Okay, right. Okay, well, at least it seems like we have already 4 people, so it's not only Brian. So I don't want the load to be only on Brian at Strata. It would just overload him too much. But if Kyle and Jason and Chris are there, that allows for good coverage, so that Brian isn't completely overwhelmed. Good. Go ahead, Jason. Sorry for cutting you off.
Yeah, no problem. So just like Chris mentioned, just continue to work on the Phosphor notebook in particular. I mean, right now we're just concentrating on lower level stuff, so sessions and notebook objects and things like that. Nothing higher level just yet. And then I just want to mention that TypeScript 1.5 has been released, so we're official now using 1.5, and we've upgraded the Phosphor notebook, and Chris has already upgraded the Phosphor package itself as well to TypeScript 1.5.
Great.
Oh, okay. I hadn't seen that release, so okay. Matthias, does that?
Yeah, I'm mostly working on trying to put Google Drive under the models we have in Phosphor Notebook, and I had like a roughly working at some level where you can type in a cell and it's synchronized in another window, just to see if we have API problems or models problems.
Okay. But the TypeScript 1.5 release, does that help you in any way?
Didn't change much. I was already using 1.5 beta for a few weeks, months now. So.
Okay, so it's just that it's official.
Yes.
It's official. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you, Jason.
Okay. Can I go?
Go.
So as of today, I have permission to live in Norway, so I will actually be doing that at the end of the summer. Over the past week, other than preparing for the Jupyter Day, I've been working on 4.0 release stuff. We've now released almost every package for 4.0. The ones that are left are IPython itself, the notebook package, the widgets package, and then the trivial meta package. We've also released things not related to 4.0, which are Jupyter Hub and MV Creator, which we released at SciPy. The primary stuff between us and 4.0 are the docs in the new central Jupyter docs. That's kind of the landing page with install information and overview stuff. That honestly is the primary thing in between us and releasing 4.0. There's very little code left to write. The code left to write that does exist is really dealing with some of the install and build stuff on the notebook repo and the widgets repo. And something I have left to do based on earlier in this meeting is I need to put my stuff in the Jupyter Day repo that I'll do after this meeting. Yeah, but we're very close to 4.0. Very close.
Okay.
That's me. Brian?
Brian, you have your notes typed in?
Is Brian still in the meeting?
Brian?
Would appear not.
Hello?
Yeah. We can hear you.
I have to unmute my phone for you to hear me.
Ah. We can see your notes.
Okay. So for the last few days, I've been working with Cameron a lot on the redesign of the Jupyter website, and we've been sort of bouncing back and forth with me developing content, him trying to consume that content, and then sort of kicking it back to me saying, hey, that sentence is way too long, or it's sort of there's a feedback loop that we have set up between the visual design and the content, and it's coming along very nicely. I'm really, really excited. I think some of you have seen some earlier prototypes, and it's moved forward considerably since then. And next, I've been working on the top level documentation that Min mentioned. I took another pass at it, and still playing with different aspects of the organization, and I'm going to try to get that done before I leave for PyData on midday Thursday, and so hopefully that will stop being a bottleneck for the release. I finished the contract, or at least my part of processing the contract for Will to work this summer on the completion spec and UI implementation of that. And so I think it's Will, you should be mostly set up, right?
Yep. I actually just signed the contract and sent it over yesterday. So I think I should be all set.
Awesome. I've been buying lots of stuff, so T-shirts, laptops for different people, stickers, etc. Lots of conversations with various folks about Jupyter Spark integration, and in particular, trying to spawn conversations amongst various stakeholders that are interested in Jupyter and Spark and getting Operon plugged into that. Also having conversations both on some GitHub issues in our repo and phone calls and so on about how we can use Docker more effectively. And one of the questions is, what do we do about the growing problem that we want? It would be nice to have Docker containers for all kernels, but it's very awkward and difficult to compose different Docker containers together. And so I've been talking with Kyle and a little bit of Min about how we could actually move away from having single containers that have all the kernels in them to actually running individual kernels in Docker containers. And so I actually may have Oberon spend some time working on that as well. And then there's also conversations going on about actually building self-contained Docker stacks that we can recommend to sort of early stage users who want to use a notebook with a core set of kernels that are currently difficult to install. You could imagine like a data science stack that has Python, R, Julia, Scala, Spark, that people can literally just say go and get the notebook with those kernels. And then I've also been working on the organizational aspects of the Phosphor notebook front end. And we did a doodle poll over the last few days. And so the meeting for that is today from noon to 3. If this meeting here goes a little bit late, we could definitely postpone that till 12:30 or something to let people get lunch on the West Coast.
May I ask you, when you update a repo, to even go through a PR and merge it immediately, so that at least we get notifications that something has changed and we can look at it? Because otherwise we won't.
I had a mess of local changes on master, and so for this time I just pushed directly. But yes, absolutely, I'll do everything in a pull request now.
Okay, thank you.
Will?
Hey. So, like it says in the doc, then I've mostly been working on talking to people about the proposed completion spec and getting feedback on that. A lot of people have had like really good suggestions for things to add or things to change. I think that with some additions like including documentation and docs links and things like that, then this spec, roughly in its current form, will probably work. So the next step for me is going to be to, as Brian asked, also do a Python implementation of this kernel with those completion changes and see that everything works well, and then sort of like submit that for additional review.
Okay.
I think we have Cal, Polly, Kyle, and Thomas left.
Yep.
In whatever order.
In that order.
Okay,
Cal,
in
Polly,
that order.
Cal, Polly.
I looked from left to right in my visual field.
Okay, so as Brian mentioned, I've been looking into some of the more Jupyter and Spark integration. I've had some conversations with Min and a couple other stakeholders outside of the Jupyter organization. We're starting to look into what kind of work we want to do on our side and what kind of work we want to do by going and making requests to the actual PySpark developers. I've also started looking into deploying IPython parallel on Yarn, and what I've started to experiment with is a project called Apache Slider that would allow us just to kind of package it and not have to change much of the IPython parallel machinery to get it running on Yarn. Just make it something that's kind of aware of anything else in a Yarn cluster.
Great, cool.
This week, I spur of the moment decided that I'm going to go to PyData, so I'll go to that this weekend, and that should be fun. And then I'm really focusing, as I said on the GitHub, I was posting photos of the website mockups that I've been making, refining them day over day. And so I should have those done either by the end of this week or maybe the early next week, have those up, and we can start putting that together through an actual website. And that was pretty much it. I'm just focusing on the website mainly right now. So.
Great.
I did a code review with Brian over the weekend, and I think I resolved. I'm using a new workflow right now, and it's making the refactoring go a lot faster. I have some small scripts that I'm just using to do some of the editing for me, and yeah, it's going a lot smoother now.
Cool.
Yeah.
And then I've just been working more on my spreadsheet as we talked with Chris on Friday. And then Brian did a code review with me on Sunday. So redoing a lot of the architecture of my programming, etc.
Okay.
And that's it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, so I'm having a bad network connection, so if I freeze up, feel free to jump past me, because the whole meeting keeps freezing up for me. And I'm outdoors in Seattle. Yeah, so I've been working on the transfer line stuff with John. I didn't actually get to hear what John covered, but like my goal has been to build up towards components that like Phoebe needs for like the O'Reilly stuff, but also towards stuff that can be shared across a bunch of different contexts. And that is packaged as like pure node code that works in the browser and otherwise. And so that's like the lowest level display protocol piece that I want to get out and working. Yeah. Cool. That's about it.
Thank you. Thomas, last but not least.
I've just been working on various small things, Jupyter Day, helping Jess with MB-graded packaging. Yeah, no headline features.
Anything else? I mean, you're our official 4.0 release manager, though Min did a lot of 4.0 release news. Anything else beyond that?
He's managing me.
Managing Min.
Managing Min.
Is he giving you any trouble?
Yeah, he's
well behaved.
Racing ahead.
Well behaved.
Racing ahead. Yesterday I had he said, I think there are these packages listed to release, left to release, and I said, I think you've forgotten these two, and he said, no, I released those today.
Oh. Okay, perfect. You want to type that up in the notes so that we have a record? Oh, okay, you are already doing that.
I started doing it, but while doing it, I wasn't hearing what he was saying, so can you do that?
Okay, yeah. Be good to have the notes from everybody. Okay, I think we've managed to hit everything, and we have a few minutes left in the window of time in case there's any kind of top-level discussion or questions. I think it's a good idea to try to cover the reporting from everybody in time, and then if we have a window of time left, then we can have kind of open discussion in case there's some brainstorming that people would like to cover.
I think Sylvan joined us.
Oh, Sylvan, welcome.
Sorry, I was muted. How are you doing?
Good. How are you? Good to have you.
Yeah, so I was in another meeting earlier. Sorry, I haven't given my report because in the last couple of days I was working on more Bloomberg internal things. But lately I've been working on threadlets and widgets, and especially in persistence. And a pending pull request and widget persistence that does a workaround for the missing com list message using only com messages. So that's one thing, and I've also been working on signaling for IPython widgets.
Signaling, okay.
Yeah, using like an API similar to PyQt for signals and slots.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
So to me, signals are really different from signal is really different from events and callbacks, in that there is a sort of static typing in the signature. So in that they are very similar to threadlets. And so the basic idea of this PR is that all the communication between widgets happens on the JavaScript side, but you wire them from the Python side with a PyQt style API, and the signature of the callbacks and signals is given via a trait type.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, anyone interested in looking at this? I wanted to tackle this in the meeting on threadlets, but yeah, we didn't get to talk about it.
Do you think that signature will be expressible by other language backends in a similar fashion, so that when other language backends implement a similar...
So in the description of the PR, I actually explain it's more of a protocol to ask the frontend to create a new signal, connect a signal, emit a signal. So besides the backbone update message and the other message type that we had already, which are display and custom, I think, now we have connect, disconnect, emit, invoke. So that any backend can actually, speak that protocol and implement signaling for IPython widgets.
Okay.
So-called silence now. So yeah, and by the way, actually, so this is only for the front-end side, but there is another subject on threadlets which I think we could start discussing, is to have also a Python-only signaling library, because there are many things threadlets really convey very well the notion of state and how to synchronize state between different models and different hash-trace instances, but we don't have such a high-level statically typed and validated API for events at the moment. Hello.
Yeah.
No, sure.
So you're wondering if we should have a separate library for providing slots and stuff, or adding slots as a new notion to traitelets? Is that kind of the question?
No, actually, I've started working on a new module, so that'd be called signaling. That would depend on traitelets. So it could be integrated of traitelets aside of it as a different module installed by the same pip installable thing, and so it would have exactly the same API as what I've done for widgets, except that everything would happen on the back end and would validate inputs and outputs using actually traitelets. So rather than having a signature like in PyQt signals, any signal is declared as a descriptor and holds a trait type corresponding to the signature. So yeah, I can push something.
That sounds like you have a circular dependency between signals and traitelets.
So Chris, can you say that again?
From what you described, it sounds like there's a circular dependency between signals and traitelets. Is that correct?
No, traitelets don't depend on signals.
Okay.
Signals depend on traitelets. So every signal is a descriptor that inherits from the base descriptor that's defined in the traitelets library. So it can a hash trait instance can hold trait types, but also signals and slots, and every signal holds a trait type corresponding to its signature. So to the signature of the callback that can be registered to this signal. So whenever you emit a signal with a value, the value is coerced and validated, and then the callback is invoked. And the list of all the callbacks are invoked with that argument after validation.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, this is we had use cases in widgets, so that's why I already opened the PR in IPy widgets, but I think would be useful as well in the backend.
Okay. Sure. Yeah, we can explore that.
Who is speaking?
This is Ben. Sorry.
Okay. So yeah, I don't know if have you looked at the IPython widgets PR already, or?
Probably, but not in depth. I've been focusing on releasing stuff for the last while, but.
So the JavaScript side actually uses Phosphor, an old implementation, an old version of the Phosphor signals and slots. So hopefully when Phosphor gets loaded and as part of the core notebook application, we should be able to directly use Phosphor signaling. So for now, I actually embed a JS compiled version of it.
Okay. Yeah, we can start reviewing that stuff.
Okay, that's it.
Anything else?
Nothing other to say than I have a slight tinge of fear when I imagine that we're starting to implement half of Qt in IPython, but that's okay.
Well, it's a signaling library. It's not in IPython, right? Chris is doing it in TypeScript, but we're not doing it in IPython, right? Dylan is talking about doing it in his own package outside of IPython.
Yeah, we're having the conversation here. That's okay. All right. Any last short topic for the last few minutes?
As we're talking about building up new static sites, is there a build chain that we're imagining for making that content management and build and bringing in stuff that we want to be driven by data? Is there anything about that happening yet?
I don't think we've set up any of that stuff yet.
If it's purely static, I guess Travis build and push on GitHub pages. If it's driven by data, if we can do it purely in the JavaScript side, I would be for it, so that it's just a merge button. If we need backends to analyze data, I don't know.
My tentative plan so far has been to use either a JavaScript or a Python templating system as a build step, but then host everything on GitHub pages statically. And if that template build step needs to include some, pull data sources or things like that, that it totally could do that.
Good.
But I should mention, right now, Cameron, our designer, is doing the HTML and CSS coding, and it would be great if there's someone on the team that wants to help him get that tool chain set up. He doesn't have any experience with the coding side of it.
If he makes pull requests, we can help him. If it's just somewhere without notifications, there is no way we can know it's somewhere.
No, yeah, and that is going to be a challenge, and we'll have to figure out how to set up a workflow that makes sense.
I would say just make a pull request, even if it's not merged, just for people to be able to discuss about what's happening.
Well, I don't know that it's realistic to have a GitHub-based workflow for designers is the issue.
Yeah.
And I mean that's last year our experience was that it was not practical. We could revisit that. I think the GitHub app for Mac has improved, but I don't know that it's still.
I mean, he's doing
efficient.
HTML and CSS, so it's text file, right? Or is it like how is it, an anti-type thing?
No. I mean, he's doing the prototype in Sketch, and then hand coding HTML and CSS.
Okay, so for the hand coding HTML and CSS part, it should be okay, especially if you need us to set up Travis.
Yeah. Okay. We can work through that.
Yep.
Alrighty. Anything else?
We are on time. We're not over.
Alrighty. Okay. Goodbye, Internet, and see you all later.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.